Okay, let's just start with settling our mind. Try to sit up straight. And just follow your breath in and out. Not following any trains of thought. Not trying to not think. Just being aware of the breath going in and out. Allow your face to relax. Shoulders relax. Now imagine you're surrounded by all the people of your life. And imagine them sitting here with you in meditation. Think about your intention for your spiritual practice. Make the determination to use your study and meditation to increase your understanding and insight for the sake of all the people of your life. And try to allow that to be a joyful state of mind, not a worried state of mind. Just a mind that wishes to benefit those around you. and at least do no harm. Now imagine you're sitting on the side of a hill or sitting on the sand of the beach if you like the beach. Just imagine it's a really peaceful day, very comfortable temperature, no clouds in the sky. If you'd like, you can imagine that you're just lying back, lying on the warm sand, on a grassy hill. And you're just gazing up into a clear blue sky. Focus on its spaciousness. Imagine your body and mind, as well as everything around you, becoming one with this pure, empty space, luminous and clear, without any sense of separation. No need for thinking of any kind, no need for judgment. This is the clear, pure nature of your mind. Try to rest in this awareness, this clarity, this spaciousness. Allow any thoughts or sensations just go by without engagement. Anything that arises, thoughts, feelings, emotions, sensations, are in the nature of this spaciousness, this clarity. This formless, space-like nature of the mind. So now take a moment to extend your motivation beyond the meditation to the class. Making the wish that it be of benefit, not just for your own understanding, but it's going to ripple out and benefit those around you. Now recite the 7-limb prayer. Reverently, I prostrate in my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined, and declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own merits and those of all others to the great enlightenment. And then refuge and bodhicitta prayer. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So when we master the skill of sitting with the clarity of the mind, the spaciousness of the mind, you never have to wait again. You always have something to do. It's really true. It's a nice, hard though. Anybody have trouble with that? To really just be alert, be aware of spaciousness, because it's not nap time, although it can feel like nap. It's really trying to get in touch with, and some days you can do it, some days you can't. But that sort of the faculty that allows thoughts to arise. It's always present. Awareness is always present. And we're more aware of the thoughts, the activity that's going on in that space, and not the nature of the mind itself. That there's a peacefulness always present in the mind, that it's our jumping around with our thoughts and our, following this, following that, following, that makes it chaotic. but all the time, the mind's just reflecting whatever it's aware of. So if we're directing our mind to this and that, this and that, this and that, then it's going this and that. This. So, um, but this spaciousness is actually accessible all the time, with practice, with just being able to like drop the story, you know, drop the worry, and just take a moment to be aware of awareness. Any thoughts on the mind this week? How's your mind doing?
I'm still at the point where I only realize things afterwards.
That's where that's no, I mean, that's how you start. I mean, it really takes practice to notice even after the fact. I mean, it really does. I mean, this is exactly part of the skill to develop. So don't be horrified by that. Be thrilled that you're starting to notice after the fact, because we can't do anything until we start noticing.
I'm doing much better than I ever imagined I would do, because I never imagined that I would be doing this. So for me, it's a total revelation. And with each new awareness of some habituated pattern, I'm like, oh, this is great. Here's another one I can do.
Yeah, this is the thing. It gives us all the power to notice it. And of course, the only way to start off noticing is after the fact. There's nothing to notice before the fact.
Yeah.
So,
But I find it so overwhelming because there's so much that needs to be undone.
no, you just need really, the skill here is becoming aware from moment to moment. Doesn't matter what that moment holds. Once you become aware, and then once you become aware that there's a space between that thought and the next thought, that you can direct your mind in a direction you want it to go. So it's really about, the only reason why there's so much is because you haven't been looking, and it's just, or you haven't thought there was anything you could do with it. That's more likely, you just kind of, well, there we go. So the benefit of sitting with trying to get familiar also with that spaciousness of the mind, that there's also a backdrop going on with all the is that gives you access to that space, that pause moment. So, and it also is a place of ease, so really the first job is just to notice. You don't have to worry about what you do with noticing. It's just a process of developing these skills that, when they're woven together, will give you a lot of choice. And part of that is, of course, when you catch patterns, when you realize, I do this a lot, then you think about it. Think about, what are the benefits of not thinking that way. Then you think about the benefits of thinking that way. What do you think's in it for you? Why do you have this habit? So, so we had to do all those steps. We need to study some to figure out, what we might want to consider changing, even if it's possible to change it, all those kinds of things, so.
I find
Yeah, go ahead.
I find the asking of why to really be important. And then I actually because of what you've been talking about with intention. Try to understand what was the intention of that habit.
Yeah, and this is what I mean when I say I just keep looking for me in the picture. Where am I?
Oh, that's
Because that's where I find my self-interest. Oh, here I am. I want this to happen. Now, and so often, I'll have to face the fact either I have no control of it, just like let that go, or that it's a mistaken idea, that whatever my self-interest is, that it's really not kind of important.
I find for me the biggest challenge is work
Mm-hmm.
because I have to interact with so many more people and I've got to, you know, perform, so to speak. And I guess it's just a question of skill on my part because, that's where I have the most conflict and struggle the most.
And that's not unusual. I mean, it is these interactions with lots of other people, but people that we're not choosing to be with, all that kind of stuff that can press a lot of buttons through the day. And also, you don't have a lot of time, so you feel a certain pressure to respond, react, bleh, all that kind of stuff. So it really is a matter of training, of taking that pause and recognizing how brief pauses are. You don't have to take some 5-minute pause. It's literally just, and then speak, and just notice after the fact, at the end of the day, maybe when you get in your car, you spend 5 minutes thinking about your day and noticing what got to you, what was the stressful parts of the day and what did it look like? Who was involved? Did your what part did you play in that stress? Is it because sometimes when we don't have a good answer to something, when we're just, I don't know what to do with this. Yeah, that could be a stressor. Or when we're just tired, or it was before lunch and we were really hungry, so we want to know what else might be flavoring the interaction so that we can not put so much importance into the actual interaction with the other person, and recognize, oh, this was a lot more about, being tired or hungry, not having an answer, or being frustrated with the system or blah, 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 so that, because that's part of our pauses. Our pauses can really help when something arises that we know we can't, the system's terrible. So that we can just relax into that. We don't have any control over that. We can't change it. And so there's no point in getting all worked up. It'd be a point if that energy was going to allow you to do something differently, but better to use that energy to accept the fact that you can't do anything. So relax, So much of our tension can revolve around thinking that we ought to be able to fix everything. And if we're a boss, then there's some pressure on that. Or if we're the manager, blah blah blah. What? Go ahead, argue.
No, I know. I was just saying it's like the pressure of, you've got a set number of goals or whatever, and you're trying to accomplish that, and then
people get in the way.
Right, exactly.
How dare they?
And I know I can't control their behavior, but I still try, and I'm not successful.
And so you're wasting a lot of energy on that.
Correct.
Yep.
And I'm not doing myself
any favors doing it. Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. We have to kind of cut off this blaming them for the activity we're wasting time on, which is thinking we can control them. Yeah. Now, you may have to become more skillful at how to pause somebody else, like, I need to get back to this for the moment. Can I, get back to you on that? whatever it is, you know. You also want to look at your goals. Make sure they're fitting with reality, for one thing. But also, are you just making things too tight? You know, and only you can figure that out, and you don't have control over all of that because you've got a certain job to do and da 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 da, you know. But it is tiring to feel like you should be able to fix other people and get them out of your way. And that fatigue from that is going to affect your productivity, all of those things. So it's a matter of recognizing I don't need to give energy to that concern. And, it's just sort of like, oh, oh, hello, what can I do for you? Oh, kind of thing. Or, yeah, I'm really swamped today. I can't really help today. Whatever. But it's really but this belief that we have that somehow we should be able to fix this is getting in our way.
But that's what we get paid for.
No, you don't get paid for that. There's nothing in your pay that says, by the way, you should have the unrealistic expectation that you can fix other people and you can make them change. If it's in your job description, and your boss saying, I haven't found any of this to ever be true. It's an interpretation we have. Yes, like when you manage people, you need to, you're trying to be skillful and smoothing edges and trying to make suggestions that might make things go better, but it's like, if they're, you can't really fix them, and you certainly can't make them do it in your image, because that's some of the frustration we get up against, I think.
Yeah, I had to have a whole conversation about whether or not they could buy a different kind of cookies because these ones people don't like and they're expiring. I'm so not interested in that.
Well, you can also you really can learn how to step back and go, oh, I would think you can figure that out, dear. Yeah. I mean, it's like, but by acknowledging where they are, sometimes it's as simple as acknowledging, yeah, it's a real pain to try to figure out how to please everybody, or I can understand that you're worried that you have to make the perfect decision, but you don't need to worry about that. We've gotten some information. They don't like this look. So go with that, and it's just, but so it's like most of us need when we go to someone else, often we want some acknowledgement of what struggle we're having. And that's all we need. It's just the acknowledgement. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happens when my sister calls. There's a lot of drama going on in my family, and it was my son that pointed it out to me that she just wants to vent.
Yeah, there's also that. And you can learn how to cut the vent to a reasonable amount of time. For you. Nobody else gets to decide what that is.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like, and then and there's some skills that you can use to make that go better, like actually listening. Listening helps. If you can't even tell them what they just said to you, you're not listening. So they're going to feel unheard, and that doesn't help someone who's venting.
I've found and I've been in situations where family are venting, I start out the conversation in a good place. And by the time I've absorbed all their venting, I'm not feeling so good anymore.
That's your choice.
Yeah.
I mean, we really have to take responsibility for the fact that we can listen to someone and not care about the content. That we're listening because we care about the person. We're not, it doesn't matter that the content, that you could roll your eyes at it and you would never have this conversation because that's not important. The important is that it's for people to feel heard and cared about, and it's okay to not absorb any of that. That takes practice. especially, and if it's something you've heard a million times before, you don't have to listen so hard. You already know what it is, but you have to make sure you know what it is. Don't close your ears too soon. Yeah,
I can't because she'll come back and she'll say, can you believe that? Yeah, I mean, she'll test me.
smart cookie.
Just be quiet, but she'll test me. It's I think I was trying to help in the past, and that was frustrating. But then, like I said, my son suggested that I just listen.
Yeah, just listen.
That seems to work.
Yeah, most of us want a listener, not a fixer. It's just, listen for a little while. And it's just a matter of conveying that sense of, this part of this is the choice. If you decide to pause to have a conversation with something or to hear something someone is telling you, if you've made that decision, then do your best to do it. If you make that decision, but in your mind you're going, God, when are they going to shut up? I don't have time for this. Da 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 da. Then you really aren't doing it. You're doing nothing except complaining in your head. So it's a matter of recognizing when you're acting like you've made the decision to listen, but you're not actually doing it. It's like the partner who says, yes, I'll go to that movie with you. I'd be happy to join you, and does nothing but talk throughout the whole movie because they don't like it. Excuse me? This is what you call companionship? No, you should have stayed home. So it's, we have to take responsibility. If we give that in, look, then, we have to go, okay, what is it that you need to talk to me about, and get them. And then you can say things like, I don't have time to address that right now. I'll think about it and I'll get back to you. I hear that you're worried about it, whatever, or I hear it's a complaint. But and this desire, to be able to have the work day without any inconvenient interruptions is unrealistic. That's not how it is. Most of us wouldn't have jobs if that's how it was. Like you said, our job's to, manage. Well, if there's nothing to manage, you go home. So it's really, looking at, observing what is the button that's being pressed. Is it just that I don't like this person? And then you can kind of deal with that in your mind in a different way than, like, I don't have an answer to this person. I don't have the time today, whatever it is. But it's that, that desire for it to be different cannot be fixed. Because it's happening. This resistance to what is part of our problem. It's none of this stuff is a piece of cake. But when you get once you relax a little bit about, I expect too much out of myself. I expect to be able to fix these things in a snap and make everybody feel happy about it, and then be able to get back to my work and finish that and da 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 da. And of course it never seems to go that way. Or I expect not to be able to be affected by blah, 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 blah. Sometimes we just expect too much out of ourselves and we need to relax a lot. We just, it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, here we go.
But so I question that sort of tension is a driver or a motivator And it's very hard for me to undo that. And
I'm not catching that.
so the tension when
Okay,
conflict, it's a motivator for me
to what?
to, change things or do something different or get
Because you don't like that feeling. Yeah, that's one of the first steps, is becoming comfortable with discomfort.
I should be comfortable with
I
it.
know we haven't so much. But that's part of our resistance to what is, because you're just trying to change the channel.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll fix it. Let's change the channel. Sometimes things, so sometimes you have to, when you're reflecting on it, not in the moment, because you have to kind of practice in advance for some of these things that come up over and over and over again. Think about a situation like, someone you work with, just lost their spouse, their child, their aunt, but they've just, someone in their life has died and they're sad about that. You can't do a thing about that, but you can sit with someone in their sadness. Well, it's not comfortable. It's, but you're willing to do it because you respect their discomfort. And so often we're dismissive of people's discomfort because it's not that big, or we can't imagine being, that would be a button for us or something. So it's opening our hearts to going, it doesn't matter whether it bothered me or not, it bothers them, and being able to create more space to, to tolerate our discomfort, helps in these interactions, because that's one of the, that desire to not be uncomfortable. First of all, it's entirely self-interested. It doesn't solve anything. It's just simply because things are going to continue to make you uncomfortable all through your life. We're not able to support each other in our uncomfortable moments if we can't tolerate them. So it's one of the ways we shortchange each other, by not being able to tolerate that someone's in an uncomfortable situation, that we're uncomfortable because we don't have, I won't know what to say. I don't know. We make it all about us, instead of just recognizing it's nice for people to know that they have people aware of their discomfort, their suffering, whatever degree it is. And that we don't have to do anything else. Just like we cannot take the sadness away from someone who's lost someone. Most of discomfort we can't do anything about. We just have to be able to sit and hold that space for a moment. And that's what you do when you're listening to someone vent. You're just holding that space. But as soon as we shift it to I have to do something here, it's usually that we're trying to run away from our suffering, our discomfort, not theirs. It's just, it's another way of going, oh, I'm making it about me again. See if I can turn it around and make it about them. And none of this is unusual. This is how our ignorance has trained us to think that somehow you exist out there, and if I just take care of this person over here, everything will be, my life will be okay. And it's just not true. We're not that separate. We're very interconnected, interdependent. It matters how everybody else is feeling as well.
But sometimes I understand the concept of we're all interconnected, and if we're happy, then people around us will tend to lean that way. But
so intellectually, you've got that.
Yes, but well, I think about my reality, and that is, I have to struggle to maintain my little role or circle, of life and job and all that, I can't be certain that other people are going to.
Yeah, that's what our self-interest tells us. Whereas in fact,
So I don't want to.
you're depending on people all the time, people you don't know, so it's a lie you're telling yourself. It is not true. And this is the part we have to recognize when we're looking. What is that based on? What am I telling myself about reality? And is it true? Is it true that what's really necessary is I just take care of my little pod? And if I don't take care of my little pod, nobody else will. Because everybody else in this little pod doesn't have any friends, doesn't have any help, doesn't depend on anybody, but it's all not true. It's a story that we've been telling ourselves for eons that somehow we're separate and we have to take care of the me part, me and mine. And in that way we'll be okay. And it's not true. So you have to think about it a lot. You have to think about all the times that you wouldn't have survived if there hadn't been someone else taking care of you.
I have a dilemma almost every day that I take my garbage out to the dumpster.
Okay, can we talk about someone else's life now?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So but the point is we can come up with pretty much minute by minute examples of our struggle with either other people or our own minds, or just, that life is not serving up what we'd like to see. Because this is what our habit energy is looking for. What's not going right? What do I need to fix? What emergency do I need to manage? Instead of just handling whatever is arising, that resistance to the struggles, of the minutes of the day adds on a whole extra layer of suffering. Because we already have the suffering of not getting what we want. We already have the suffering of it's not going very well. We already have, but this idea of it should be different than this is another way of suffering. And this is something that we can work on by not being resistant to what is happening. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So it's not easy to do or get used to doing, but it keeps us from having two stories to suffer from. Either whatever's happening that we're not too thrilled about, and then our story about it. And I can't emphasize enough that the importance of observing what's going on is not others. We don't have to spend much time observing others. We have to respond to whatever input we get. But what we need to observe is us, our minds, our speech, our actions. We spend an awful lot of time thinking about theirs. Well, if they would just do it this way, it'd be so much easier. If they did this, da 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 da. We can go all day long. We have no control over any of that. So what's the point? We do have control over how we're responding, how we're thinking, what we're focused on. We can create habits that make life go easier, not the actual physical, the doing part, the experiencing part. We can experience life in an easier way if we don't create a lot of tension within, just in the inner part. So the beauty about being observant isn't about having all these pieces from a variety of people, including ourselves. It's about one person. It's about your mind. just catching ourselves when we realize, I'm not happy with this. And so we know, okay, if I'm not happy with this, I'm not particularly reliable. Because what happens when we're not happy with something? What arises?
Irritation.
Okay, what is that?
The beginning of anger.
What is that? Let's get simple.
Oh.
It's a disturbing emotion. Like if you go, and what is a disturbing emotion? It's an exaggeration of something. It's a lie, basically. So it's not reliable. So he's sort of like, okay, I'm not going to feed this state of mind. I'm going to pause a second and try to respond from a different place, not from that irritation. Because irritation, if we feed irritation, who gets more miserable? Yeah, we do. And we try to spread it around, but there's no question that we get more miserable. So the solution to being irritated is not listening to that. Saying, maybe I'll pause here and switch directions. And we can't always do it, but there's so many moments where we can, because they're trivial moments that really aren't important. It's just, big surprise, I caught the red light. So I'm going to be 5 minutes later, whatever. So the way in which, so we're observing what's going on. And then we look at what's going on with ourselves and our mind. And then we look at the teachings and say, how would, the teachings explain this attitude or this and that, What does the karma say about it? What does cause and effect say about it? And the truth of suffering. If we look at pieces of the teachings, about our states of mind, where they come from, the origins of our states of mind. What are the origins of our states of mind?
Conditioning.
Conditioning. Who's conditioning?
Mine.
Yeah, ours. We condition ourselves. We're conditioning our mind. Yes, we pick up habits from other people because we're interdependent, all that stuff, so, but it's not someone out here shaping our mind. It's what we're taking on, and practicing, what we're feeding, and we're good at it, because after all our experience is in the mind. Yes, you can hurt your body, but it's the mind that's suffering. It's like, it's fascinating how we forget that all of our experience, 100% of our experience, is because of our awareness. So taking care of what we do with what we're aware of is really important to our peace of mind. It's like we were talking about the other night, just about how if you have chronic pain, that when one of those pains arises, it's not an alarm. Pain's generally an alarm. Something's wrong here, but if you always have that pain because of arthritis or an injury or whatever, there's nothing to be alarmed about. So you don't have to be disturbed by the fact that it hurts, if you understand my meaning. It may hurt, but you don't have to worry about it. Oh, is this going to be, it's going to hurt probably forever.
You said try to prevent physical harm, physical pain, because it hurts the mind.
Mhm.
What did I misunderstand there?
I'm saying that it is our response to pain or any experience that we can, we can choose how we respond. So what one thing we can learn from chronic pain, when we go to the doctor, like I was having pain, forgot my, but it was like arthritis pain, So you go to the doctor, and I said, okay, so if I do this, what hurts when I do this, is it going to make the arthritis worse? And he said, no, it doesn't matter if you do it anyway, it doesn't harm anything. You're not doing any damage. Well, then I knew that pain no longer was an alarm bell saying you need to do something differently. No, it's that, guess what? Your body's broken there, but you don't have to change anything. And that means I don't have to worry about that pain. Now I can worry about it. I can feed it. I can pay a whole lot of attention to it, and be miserable all the time. Or I can just go, thanks for sharing, and ignore it. So because I can't change it. So it's this is true of, so like when we get irritated or impatient or hurt, from a slight of someone's words or expression or whatever, we can look at that and kind of gauge whether, how much should I feed this? Is it real? Am I exaggerating something? If we're upset about something, it is likely we are exaggerating the negative qualities of something. We're making it bigger than it is. That person purposely looked at me that way to hurt my feelings, when they probably weren't thinking about you at all. It's just this, but we do that. We can get really offended if someone acts a little differently towards us the next time we see them, as if they might not be preoccupied with something else, And that's that self-interest. That's that thinking, I'm the center of the universe. So when we have that attitude all the time, I have to protect the center of the universe because nobody else will, we are misunderstanding the inputs. And of course, so is everybody else. So it can be quite confusing. So when we're observing, it's important to try to become a detached observer. This is like standing back and watching a movie. Being able to go, okay, if my best friend was here, what would she say? But just really stepping back. This is particularly helpful when you're looking back at something, is to remember you're not in it now. So step back and try to get a clearer picture of things. And this is how you can start to notice or become familiar with, what are the clues? What are our little cues that we're going off kilter? We started to tense our body or tense our jaw or tense our shoulders. Our shoulders are up here. What?
Could you interpret or give a synonym for symptoms?
Whatever clues you have in your body or your thoughts that are saying that you're disturbed. This is something you have to discover about what are your symptoms that you're getting disturbed. You're getting hooked. Most of us have some sort of physical tension that will hold. But sometimes you can even catch it before that physical sensation. You realize that your mind's starting to be really kind of cautious. You're kind of looking at things. You've just changed the angle of the way. But you have to, it's usually it starts that you realize, oh, look at me, I'm all tense now. So Yeah, that's a clue. Those kinds of things, because the more familiar we get with those kinds of signs, we can interrupt it earlier and earlier and earlier. And what I mean by interrupt is we can interrupt the habitual reaction to it, and give us some space to not say anything that we'll regret, not do anything that we'll regret. Because regret is, we suffer from that. So when we do things without thought, when we just react due to habit, oftentimes this is what we're looking for when we're observing our habits. Is that working for me? Or do I end up so often regretting how I responded to that situation? And under the influence of impatience or irritation or feeling hurt or, whatever the button was. And you'll discover that there's some clues. I always get this catch right here. What, G?
So it's what's going on inside you.
Yeah, this is all about you. Yeah.
Because I was reading it as, the issues.
Well, that's not right.
Yeah.
You are correct that that's not it. It's about you. Everything about this is about you and your inner process, your inner experience. It's not about anything else. All of Buddhism is about your mind. How are you working with your mind? Because your mind drives your actions of body and speech. And we feed our habits of mind by doing them again and again, following that habit, which is great with the good stuff. We want to feed the habit of patience and generosity and loving kindness. And, that's great. This is why habits are so useful. But when we start observing that, God, I'm always tired after this event, or that event. What's going on? What am I doing that feeds it? Am I responding? So what's the button? How am I being hooked? Figuring that out. Being very self-observant instead of outwardly going, it's their fault, their fault, their fault, their fault. It's our response. There's all sorts of faults out there. The world's a mess, so that's, but our peace of mind doesn't have to be driven by that mess. Because a lot of what the disturbance is our feeling of powerlessness. Because we're trying to have power where we don't have any. Like changing someone else. We don't have any power over that. We have a whole lot of power over how we respond. But it means interrupting habits that are not working for us, that we recognize are not very skillful. So it takes a lot of thought. So you think about it. You think about this habit. Oh, I'm impatient. What are the benefits of me not being impatient? Well, it'll correct a whole lot of my speech. I just changed that, I will find driving not the miserable experience that I find it. Well, I will regret a whole lot less of my actions. What are the obstacles to it? What do you think the biggest obstacle is to patience?
Self-cherishing.
Mm-hmm. In what way?
But you're just thinking about yourself. You don't have any patience.
Well, and this is, and it's not being able to sit with the discomfort of the moment. We don't like that moment. We want it to go away, and we'd like it to go away now. And our inability to tolerate it is causing that impatience to arise. That's the name we give with this particular one, For some, there are situations where you can't tolerate the discomfort and you go to self-loathing. Let's beat myself up for it, you know. Sometimes it's blame. We just blame someone else. This person's just unreasonable. You know? Again, it comes back to this fact that we don't like discomfort. We don't like unpleasant. And instead of, instead of just, oh, this isn't, oh, we want to change something. And we don't have control over that. Something that's happening in that moment, it's already happened. You know. So what are some ways, like, okay, say you're always like this, driving to work, because you always leave your house. You don't give yourself enough time.
Give yourself enough time.
Yeah, give yourself enough time. So it's not like you have to keep recreating the uncomfortable situation if you have some choice. You know, you can change, but say you've already left late. You know, so when that, when you're sitting there going, I can't believe I've caught every red light, you've got to relax and kind of go, yeah, I'm going to be late. Get over it. You know, it's done. It's a done deal. You can investigate what are antidotes. One of those things can be something like leave your house earlier. So you have time. But it's also things like with me and driving, for example, everybody's in the same boat on that street, you know. They're all trying to get somewhere. And there are too many cars. There are just too many of us, you know. And so it's not going as smoothly as we would like. And we can't, the lights aren't synced, to your map. So, whatever. Some people drive fast, some people are lost, some people are whatever, all these things, little things happen, So it's really just this recognizing that I can't control traffic. So why fight it? That's just making myself miserable. And it can make you drive badly. So it's, as a consideration for others. So that's a little minor thing. I mean, it's not, it's just, but it can, I mean, if someone's impatient every day when they're driving, it can add up all week, So your last day of work is like, it starts off really badly just because you have to get in the car. You have to come up with strategies. So one of the things is you start to notice all the ways in which, say, people help you at work. Or you see all the ways in which people are courteous to other drivers. You start to notice the positive stuff that's going on around you that you're missing because you're just focused on the negative stuff that's going around you. That can help with our attitude of the day. So see, this is a process of just, you study the teachings and you kind of look at your mind going, the teachings are all relevant. What's going on in my mind? And then you're observing your mind, then you contemplate the teachings with respect to that mind. See if you're learning anything. Or dismiss, saying, oh, that doesn't apply to me, Well, it might not, So, and then you go more deeply, you sit with some conclusions, When you realize, yeah, I really do feed that. I feed that mind and it's not helping me. And so you sit with that truth. You allow that to sink in to a heart level so that you can increase your motivation to work on changing it. And the thing about that we don't like to sit with discomfort. Guess what comes with change? Discomfort. It's not comfortable to do something differently. It's like it's not comfortable to pause before responding. All sorts of things can get in your way a little bit, and so you have to remind yourself, yeah, but I really, really don't like the outcome of this habit, so that you can set the resolve to try anyway. This takes a lot of time, doesn't it? So all those things you're thinking about other people, all that judgment, all that effort we try to make trying to fix things we can't fix, we just spend it this way.
Yeah.
It's not that it takes more time than that. It's just that do something else with your mind. Instead of, wishing that person would just be different, or wishing the world was different, or wishing this is different, just focus on what you can make different in your own mind. Changing the mind is just the process of observing the existing habits of mind, reflecting on the consequences of strengthening those habits versus abandoning those habits. We really need reasons to change. When you find a habit you'd really like to change, study up, figure it out, figure out the antidotes, figure out what are your buttons, figure out how do you just even pause, And you have to look at it more than once, to really get the flavor of your habit. Because sometimes it just doesn't look at all like the situation might be indicating. Some of our habits are because we have a really low sense of worth. And so we have to see if that's a theme underneath all these things. Yeah, I was wrong again. Oh, I did this wrong. Oh, I'm blah, 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 blah. So the antidote to that is loving kindness to yourself. You have to start thinking about all the things that you do well, all your good qualities, all the kindnesses, all the patience, all the helpfulness, all the the fact that you're interesting to people, whatever it is, you need to feed that. If you're oversensitive to people's remarks, if you think people are not just asking for you to try to change something in your work style, but they're actually acting like, they're not telling you you're an idiot. But if we have that issue, then we need to recognize that we are feeding this exaggerated, negative qualities of ourselves. And that's not helpful. And it's not true. So, we have to spot what's going on when that's the case. We have to outsmart our obstacles. It really takes this kind of methodical work because we've had these habits for a very long time. Some things are easy to drop off because the situations we say arise are no big deal. And so we just kind of go, oh, this is no big deal. It's like when you're driving, you realize you haven't left on time to get somewhere on time. And you just have, you just kind of go, oh, well, I'm going to be late. And then you can just let it go, Other things, it's not so easy. Might be the same issue, like impatience or something, but but the conditions are much more meaningful to you. And so it's harder to kind of you really get in there and pause and not let it turn into a disturbing emotion. So you have to practice. It's really important to rejoice at each step. So every time you notice after the fact, rejoice. Oh, yeah, there I go again. You can even have little things, you can just tell go, oh, hello, friend. I know you real well. Just, have a light touch. Really try to start to notice the physical cues because they are very helpful. This is also a key piece. Play it out in your mind. Say, oh, well, I'm going to try this strategy, da, da, da. Well, think about it. Imagine the scenario unfolding and imagining you responding in a different way. That really can help. Doesn't mean it will happen that way. It just really makes it more likely to happen that way. And remember, don't make it about how they respond because that you have no control over. And we just are trying to make new habits. So none of this, we all know how to do this. We've done it all our lives. We've developed new habits. We've broken old habits. We've learned new things altogether. We've learned how to do them well. They become, you don't even have to think about them because you're so habitual, Keep reminding yourself about why you're making this change. Notice the benefits. Notice when you feel better, more relaxed in situations. Notice when you feel like, oh, I really held my tongue. That was a good move. Notice that. Recognize your self-interest. Because sometimes all that little clue is that you're kind of, itching for something is that you're craving for something to be different, and we often just, like shift the focus, like when we try to fix something just because we're just not comfortable in that moment, or we go get another cookie, or we, get treats for ourselves. We feed our desire for the pleasant, and that's not good for us. So recognize that we want people to be pleasant to us, and that sometimes they're not going to be. And we don't like it when they yell at us. Notice those urges, when we just want to placate ourselves with buying something. Notice when we're irritated because we've lost something. Or we're afraid we're going to lose it. When we do things because we want people to like us, respect us, to think we're smart, to do whatever, that we are manipulating situations. These are all things that we can observe in our habits if we practice observing our habits. And, it is reasonable to try to avoid conditions that seem to be a condition for some disturbing emotion to arise. when that's something you can do. You can't do that with the people you work, you work with, or, you can't change everything about your day, but you can do certain things, you can avoid certain conditions that you're not ready for yet. That you always end up, trashing somebody or whatever, so it's okay to guard your senses. Save up that energy for when you can't guard your senses, when like you're at work or you've got a family, whatever. These things are, but we want to, when we know we're going into a situation that's hard for us to keep our temper, hard for us to relax, or hard for us to tolerate the other person, that we need to be kind and gentle with ourselves and really slow down our speech, slow down our actions, so that we give ourselves enough space to handle things as they arise. And the more we observe, we can start to see our distorted conceptions that we're or at least questioning it. When we've already got a story in our head that, oh, so-and-so was, not being respectful, blah, 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 blah. You want to kind of go, do you really know that? Is that really what they were thinking? Or are you taking little things and putting them together into some big story that's not actually true? You don't know that. You could be misreading the situation entirely and making yourself miserable in the meantime. And then another thing about when you step back, one of the things that's good to do is to reflect on, are you going to care a month from now? I mean, really, we make things really big. And if we look at it like, really, are you going to even remember this moment tomorrow or next week or next year? And get yourself really having that distance, because your mind's valuable. Protecting your self sense, I don't know, it's important to take care of your mind. So anyway, so Saturday, check your emails, because Anthony's going to send you the map of how to get to here. If you can do the practice day, we'll be doing the meditations, like on the clarity of mind, and the mind is knower, and the spaciousness of mind, whatever. We'll do, probably a series of short, we'll do repetitive sessions of meditation so that they're not too long and just drive you crazy. And then, but, it's sort of like you get used to what the subject matter is, and then you take a little break, and then you do it in a more, deeper way, where there's not so much guidance, and you're just looking, you're just reflecting on what you've just done in a previous meditation to go a little deeper with it in your own experience, not the words that are in a meditation, just trying to use it as a way to how you might practice at home, So it's just, but we'll have a lot of hours to do it. So and then we'll chat a little bit about it. What comes up, what doesn't come up. We can chat about the different states of mind that we've talked about, attachment and aversion, and the good stuff, non-attachment, non-hatred, What else can I say about that? So if you can, it's from 10 to 1 or 10 to 4. What is it? 10 to 4.
And bring lunch.
Bring lunch. So we don't have to go out for lunch. Bring your beverages. There is a refrigerator in the kitchen. And if you need snacks, bring snacks too. So, but mostly it's just a day to be able to to settle into a practice with, say, and you have to make the decision. I chose to show up here, so that's all. This is what I'm gonna give it a shot.
It's like a mini retreat.
Very mini retreat. Yeah. So there won't be a lot of talking. So wear comfortable clothes, bring a sweater in case I start jacking the air conditioner up. I'm hot tonight. So, but if anybody's taking the exam for this class, please email me and we'll work it out. Some people get certified in these courses because then once they finish all of them and finish a whole bunch of other stuff too, they can teach them. So, what else do I need to say? Nothing.
Check the calendar.
Check the calendar. Don't come down Hillsborough Street.
There might be the first the first next class might get swapped out it sounds like it's getting swapped out for a practice because it's a special day.
Yeah, it's the first day of the Day of Miracles. It's Losar. It's the Tibetan New Year.
Yeah, well, my memory
So your first class.
might get swapped out for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were
There's
talking about it last night, but between then and now,
yeah, it's a tough one because Lamas of Rinpoche, of course, always an opportunity for practice. Always, the Tibetans, a lot of if you have a Tibetan Geshe at your center, and there are other Tibetans in town, you usually won't see them for Losar because they're with their Tibetan families and their friends, and they're celebrating their New Year. So it's, so like a Kanapa Center in North Carolina, we almost never did anything. We did a couple of times, and then I guess it was like going, okay, that's enough. You probably don't like butter tea. You probably, that's, I want to spend time with my friends. So, so it's kind of a different experience. But it is the first day, the Buddha, during the historical Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, displayed miracle powers, siddhis, to help some of his followers believe his abilities. And so there are 15 days of the Days of Miracles, and it's a day for great merit. All your merit will be multiplied. It starts on Losar. This is when the Tibetans celebrate it anyway, or practice, and it ends on March 3rd, which will be, I think Calden's going to do a practice night here. Well, I don't know what he's going to do, whether he's going to do Shakyamuni Buddha Puja or Guru Puja or Medicine Buddha. It's up to him. But that's what it's about. Anything else I don't need to say anything else. Do you have any question at home? No. All righty. What am I doing now? I know what I'm doing now. So rejoice in your efforts over these many weeks to, try to learn something new, to look at things from a different angle. Remember that the words we use to describe the mind might have different meanings than what you normally use for English, like the word feeling has a very specific meaning of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. And so when you're reading information about this stuff, it helps to know the jargon so that you don't mix it in with the wrong information. So all my slides are on that link that you've got, so if you can't remember what any of these things mean or whatever, you haven't looked at the readings or you haven't done anything else, well, good luck. But it doesn't matter. But that's just that, jargon does matter in terms of reading this stuff. And so sometimes you get confused because they don't even use the word emotion in the Tibetan teachings. They don't make any distinction between like, oh, they're rational states of mind and emotional states of mind. No, emotional states like love and compassion are wonderful states of mind. We want to encourage them. So whereas we see them as not reasonable, whereas they consider them wisdom. So those words, but of course modern translations have incorporated some of these things. But the word feeling, when you're talking about the state of mind, feeling is just pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. So that can be confusing. So, okay, let's do our prayers. For Joyce, for Joyce, for Joyce. Okay. So we're Joyce. Remember your motivation at the beginning. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may we quickly attain the state of Guru Buddhas and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra too realized things as they are, I too dedicate all these merits in the best way, so I may follow. Example. This first paragraph. Because of all the merits of the three times created by me and all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and other sentient beings, may there be no wars, famines, disease, quarreling, fighting, or unhappy minds. May there be great prosperity, and may everything needed be easily obtained. May all the human beings in the world be guided by spiritual leaders teaching only Dharma, and may everyone enjoy the happiness of Buddha. Life of His Holiness. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. Swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Lozan father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that's never discouraged. Incomparable venerable Guru, to you I make request.
Striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings,
The sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings. You suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortune's disciple. Thank you very much for your time and your
Thank you.
efforts. And